go into later, where we didn't want people spending time guessing what we had in mind. So we gave them the words, and they had to come up and choose which pair to use. So we had what I called a slot machine interface. First on the left, you'd have picture a wheel or a list of words that you can scroll through and choose the one you want. Then you go to the right and you pick the object that you want to do it with. So look at dollar bill, for example, or pick up, whatever. After you go through the text adventure, the game begins. You get invited into the labyrinth. You can't leave until actually you walk into a movie theater and you have to stay in the game, and then you get sucked into the screen. And this used a few things that we used later on. Besides the interface I mentioned, we had use cell animation with the scaling figures, so you could change the size of them and have them recede, which pretty much came from Rescue. A lot of scrolling backgrounds, and what was something there? Oh yeah, mazes. Well, since the whole labyrinth was a maze, we had a good excuse for sticking mazes into the game. Now I don't like them, but that was a great way to extend gameplay by reusing images over and over again. So next, we moved to Skywalker Ranch. Games group, for the first 3 years we were there, George was building his ranch, which was originally on 5,000 acres, maybe 7 or 8 miles from our main offices in San Rafael, California. And we were invited to occupy what was called the stable house, which was in the fantasy of the ranch. And there's actually this whole story around the ranch, like the old sea captain who built the big house and kept on adding additions to the house in different, over the years, and his ancestors added more additions. And I mean, if you look at the place, it looks like it's been there for 150 years or a couple hundred years, which in the United States, years is a long time. Here it's not. But remember the address. We'll come back to that later on. So these are shots I pulled off the internet. I'm not revealing anything which you can't get by doing a search on Skywalker Ranch tour. Different people have gone there and taken pictures, but you can see the main house in the background. There's a little winery on the left. This is called Lake Ewok. You can see it again. Here's a close-up of the big house. This is really, if you ever happen to somehow get an opportunity to go there, it's gorgeous. The workmanship is first rate. George didn't like something and got torn down and done over again until it was perfect. He had a whole craftsman who lived on the ranch for a few years doing all the woodwork in their own mill shop and stained glass work in their stained glass shop. This is the library in the main house. And remember the spiral staircase here. We'll come back to this also. Maniac Mansion. You can see the stained glass on the roof of the library. There's a solarium in the background, which is a large glass building filled with plants and where you can eat your lunch. This is the tech building, which is made to look like a winery. It's actually where all the sound post-production is done. And so let's move to Scum. 1986, so now we're on the ranch. Ron Gilbert had been playing the Sierra Online graphic adventures and making a list of what didn't work. Some of his ideas were he didn't like, or his rules of game playing were live and learn. Adventure games should be playable from the beginning to end without dying or saving the game if the player is very careful and very observant. Arbitrary puzzles. Puzzles and their solutions don't have to be obvious, they just need to make sense. Reward intent. The object is to have fun. Figure out what the player is trying to do and help versus guess the parser. So on the first one, in the Sierra games, often you do something like pick up a piece of glass from a broken mirror, which I've done that before and didn't even cut myself. Well, if you do that in the game, of course you die, because you cut yourself and you bleed to death and you die. It makes sense, but that's kind of the logic in those games. And you have to kind of arbitrary puzzles, things that just don't make sense. If you have a puzzle in a game and you just can't get it, and you finally use a hint book to figure it out, and you say, I never would have gotten that. It's just impossible. And you get really angry at the game because it's not fair. You want it to be something that you could at least figured out. In reward intent, you don't want to have, like I said, guess the parser. You don't want to have to guess what the game player was what the programmer was imagining. If it was a bush, and you call it a bush, and he was thinking shrub or something, and it doesn't do what you want because you don't have the right word. It's not very good. Likewise, if you're wanting to have the character walk on the screen, it shouldn't be that hard to get a character to walk from behind the refrigerator to in front of the couch. We do it every day in real life. So in a Sierra game where you had to kind of steer the guy in around obstacles, and you could bump into things, and if you bump into the wrong thing, he'd die, and it just, So you should check out, Ron has this great article at this URL, grumpygamer.com/adventuregames, and it has this article he wrote, I think it was 1989, which is, of course, after we'd already done a few games, but it kind of was a compilation of his ideas, and I think he was brilliant in what he wrote. If you need the URL, I think it'll be published somewhere, so let me know. So building on the Labyrinth experience, Ron set out to build a game development environment and a new game at the same time. Maniac Mansion was the game, Scum, the scripting environment, which stood for Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion. And Ron made a point of making sure that every tool in this arsenal was named after a bodily fluid. So I think the sound editor was called Earwax. There was one called Phlegm. There was another tool called Mucus. It was kind of gross. And there are a couple other ones which I'm not going to even mention because they were so gross. Most of them, I think he managed to come up with what they stood for, but we forgot most of the other ones, so I couldn't put it in. Some of the features that made Scum different. You build sentences by pointing on a verb, actual verb on the screen, and an object on the screen. You click where you want the character to go rather than steering him with the cursor keys, and he will navigate around objects on his own, just like real people do. It's multitasking. You could have multiple scripts running in the background to keep track of events, so like a clock ticking, or how long after the doorbell was rung. You can have a countdown timer. You can have another script saying, are you close to the door? Have it open automatically when you get close enough. All these are kind of running concurrently. The idea of a cutscene, I believe, was first seen in Maniac Mansion. Non-interactive movies that advance the plot, and easy to understand scripting language